and welcome to Spiritual Health and Growth Together in Christ. I'm back again with another video, and today is a very interesting topic and one that I feel God pressing into my heart. It's a great follow-up from my more recent video. I think it was my last one that I did on listening to God's voice. The topic for today is the secret place. The last video that I did was on mental fitness. And the one before it was listening to God's voice, mental fitness and tuning into God. So this video is a perfect follow-up to both of these, to all of the videos. God leads me, and he always leads me in a good direction. So here we go. God's been showing me a lot about this lately, and there's a lot of stories that have been coming together. So it's story time. This is a long but very cool story. In 2016, this was when I had just been meeting Jesus. I had just met Jesus in a very profound way in my journey. I think I've said it before. I had been in the New Age before that, and I had a profound experience of meeting Jesus. So I was sorting things out, doing a lot of learning and growing and healing at that point, and I still am. I have a history, a past story that still continues of how I've been wounded through eating, through my food relationship, eating, body, all kinds of stuff there. And so I remember in 2016, and I was doing my poetry, and I do spoken word poetry, and God took the word fat, and he began to help me reclaim the word. Previously, that word would send me inwardly shuddering. That word was just such a hurtful word to me. I had been called fat when I was a little girl. I had always felt like, I had too much fat. My weight's gone up and down. Fat was a really hard word for me, but God began to show me that he had a different meaning to the word, that he wanted me to understand what it meant. And it began to redefine or reclaim the word for me. And now it's a word that doesn't feel the same way to me anymore. So God began to show me that fat meant something else to him. And so I wrote this poem called Getting Fat. And so I'm going to read that poem in a little while. And as I read that poem, you will get a better sense of what I mean by what God wanted to teach me about what fat meant. But for now, let's just pause there. So also, when I wrote that poem in 2016, I was a lot less refined and grown. I was a lot less grown. I was still really in the middle of figuring a lot of things out. And so I was very self-absorbed at that time. I was quite arrogant. And of course, I still can be those things, but just a lot less now than I used to be. And so I don't like to edit or change my poems, because I like them to be a really good reflection of a snapshot in time, so that you really get a picture of what was going on at that time. And then often when I can take another poem that's from a different time, you can see the growth, you can see the progress between the two of them, which is really cool. So now fast forward to 2023, just within the last few weeks, I'm in a Bible study group, and we're studying on the last half of Exodus. And particularly, we're studying about the tabernacle and the building of the tabernacle, Moses leading the people through after God gives him the instructions on how to build the tabernacle. And with this, obviously, also came the 10 Commandments. There's a lot to this story, and I could get overwhelmed and excited and lead you off in other directions talking about this story, but I'm going to just stay right here, the tabernacle. And so what we're learning is all the details involved in the creation of and the running of the tabernacle, and what it all meant on deeper levels, and how it was all pointing to Jesus. But particularly in the tabernacle, there's the outer courtyard, and then there's the inner part, the inner tabernacle. And the tabernacle had the holy place, and then it had the most holy place. And the Ark of the Covenant resided inside of the most holy place. And there were other pieces that belonged either in or out of that. And so this most holy place was like, nobody could go in there except for the priest once a year, and they had to tie a rope around him in case he died. Like, it was so intense, and he was representing the people. He would go before God in the most holy place and represent all the people. And then, if you remember, when Jesus died, in the New Testament, when Jesus died, there was a veil, like curtains between the most holy place and the holy place. And there were curtains. And when Jesus died, the curtain between them was torn. The veil was torn. And that represented the fact that now, because of the work that Jesus has done for us, we can all come boldly into the most holy place. We can all come boldly to God without having to go through anybody else, or, wait for a year, or have a rope tied around us, or anything like that. We can go boldly. And so as we have been studying in my Bible study group, and we have small group discussions that are really, really good, we've been really going around about this idea of marveling at the amazing gift. Can you imagine this gift we've been given, that we can come boldly before our God? We can come, right to him in this most holy place. And, we've had discussions around the fact that maybe not all of us go there into that deeper, most holy place. Sometimes it's called the secret place, right? And so there's a woman in particular who has been walking with the Lord for a long time. Elderly woman, very wise, very wonderful, and she's had some great discussions. And she was talking about how as a church we are a hospital. The church is a hospital, and she is concerned, she expressed some concern around us as Christians, as the hospital, that we can sometimes be getting so busy, kind of doing a lot of things and maybe building bigger and, more, and yet we can get so busy that it's almost like, but where are the nurses for the hospital then, as people are coming into the hospital? And so it really, at a certain point, I was inspired to share about this poem that I had written in 2016 about the word fat, and how what we really need to be as Christians is we need to be fat Christians. And the women in the group were really drawn to this conversation. I was really drawn to it, and so in that moment, I was like, the way that we become fat is in this most holy place, in the secret place. That's where we get fat. And so the women were really interested, and so was I. So I went home and pulled out the old poem, and I read it, and I felt like there was another poem that I needed to write. So I ended up writing another poem, more from the voice of God. So the first poem in 2016 is kind of like me calling out to God. And then the second poem I wrote a few weeks ago, 2023, is almost like God responding to me all these years later. And so it's pretty exciting. And so I want to share these poems with you at this time, and then I'll talk a little bit about them. So the first poem is from 2016 called Getting Fat. I've spread myself so thin, trying to be so huge and reach so far, divided myself into tiny fractions, dishing out crumbs and grains of sand. I've spread so thin that you can barely see me or catch me when I'm with you. And I'm not sure which part of me is with you, which fraction I am handing out. Is it a single hair from my head, my left pinky toe, or some random fleeting thoughts you are meeting? But when I'm with you, I'm so thin. And I don't mean thin around the middle. That's another story altogether. So thin that you can barely touch me, hardly feel me grabbing thin air. And this might be okay for you. You might not even notice. We've been trained this way. Perhaps you are thin too. We're like two tiny, thin raindrops falling together for a split second, but I'm catching on to this way, this thin life, and it's not okay with me. I want to get fat, really fat. I want to have so much substance, such body and such rich texture that you'll know for sure that I am there when I am with you. And even if it isn't in person, I will be so fat in spirit that you'll feel me fat in your heart. I'm leaving dull, bland, and mediocre for rich, vivacious, flavorful, and plentiful. My cup will be full like a fine French wine. Mine will be the glass in full concentration. I will not water it down any longer. When you sip from me, you will see something very precious and unique in this world, a rare gem. I will be as God created me to be. Pure, whole, luscious, bubbly, full, and beautiful. The light will shine warm, bright, and purple gold. So let's make a toast. I resign from more, and I shut the door. I'm going to live and be my most. Won't you join me? Let's get fat. Not flat, I mean fat. Let's all live like that. So that's the 2016 poem. So now I'll read from the 2023 poem. It's called Come Get Fat. Come, child, get away with me. Come, my precious one, spend time with me in the secret place. Come, dig deeper, find me deeper and deeper still. This is a tucked away place, shelter, refuge, wrapped up, tent of meeting, cocoon, nest, sanctuary, sacred, most holy place where it's just you and me. Oh, dear child, linger here with me. Come and meet me here. I long to bring you here, protected chamber. I long to speak with you where there is no distraction, concentration. It's hard to get here, I know, and some might not settle in deep enough, but oh, to taste and see that I am good in this place. Oh, to feel me here, to be held by me here. Life leaves you weary, weathered, watered down, spread so thin, gaunt, growing gaunter, handing out wisps, wilting without the vine connection. Abiding here is life, fullness of life. Come here, dear child, and I will fill you up. I will pour and pour as you empty and empty, all your burdens and bags released. It is full you need, full, not dull. My child, let's fatten you up. I have much more to feed you. My store is full and overflowing. I'll feed you milk, then cream, and oil stream. The more time you spend here, no longer lean. Let's get some meat on those bones. Fat, and fatter still you'll be. Fat, and people will know you've been with me. Fat, and fatter still. Fat you'll be. Less of you who touches others, and more of me. Okay, so thank you for listening to those poems. I often like to perform my poems with music in the background, but instead you've got this hum of my whatever it is, ductless air pumps. So anyways, what's the message here? What am I trying to share with you? The secret place, the holy place, the most holy place that we have. We've been given the way in through Jesus' death. We have the way. We have the right to come before the Father in this place where it's just him and us. It is where we become fat, spiritually fat. We need to become fat. Okay, so I'm going to share a little story. I love Indian cuisine, Indian food. Oh, I love it. It's my favorite. I love all kinds of food, but Indian cuisine is my favorite. And there's a particular restaurant in my city that's my absolute favorite Indian restaurant, favorite restaurant in the whole city. And it's got a lunch buffet. And now I'm not doing a lot of sweet foods these days, but I remember this one particular dessert, and I looked up the words for it, what it's called. It's called Indian Gulab Jamun. They are soft fried dumplings, milk donuts. They're circle, like a little ball, and they're often served in a sauce, like a honey kind of a glazy sauce, right? They are sitting and soaking in this sauce. They're immersed in this sauce, and they have absorbed it to the fullest. They are saturated, and when you bite into them, the sauce just oozes out of them. The sauce is all throughout them. Yes, you taste the donut, but it is the sauce that is just oozing out of them and soaking within them. It's the sauce. So we are like the donut, and God is like the sauce. And we want to, the more we spend time in the secret place, that's like dunking the donut into the sauce and letting it sit there and absorb it and soak it in and soak it in and soak it in, so that when we, come out of the secret place, we are just oozing. We're saturated. We're oozing with God. We're glowing like Moses radiated so much that he had to cover his face. The people were too shocked to see the glow off of his face. It was too much for them. It was scary. And so he would cover his face with a veil when he had been with the Lord. And then when he would come to the people and he'd been with the Lord, he had to cover his face so that they didn't see the shine too much. Like, let's be people who are oozing and glowing and saturated in God's presence that only comes by being in the secret place with him. The world needs this. We need it. Oh, the more we do it, the better it gets. The better it gets in our relationship with God. What does that look like? How do we do that? Well, that's a unique thing. Ask God to show you how to get there. Ask God to be there. Choose to be there. Linger there. Like, for me, it's often in a chunk of time that I set aside before I do my Bible time. I do some worship time, and then, I try to go into that place in my worship as I'm singing or just being quiet and worshiping the Lord. I've learned how to get into that place more and more. And so I've learned how to do it while I'm driving sometimes, while I'm in prayer. I've learned how to do it in little moments sometimes too. God's teaching me more and more. It's not that I'm like perfect at this. Again, muscles in the gym. It takes practice. It takes listening to God. He teaches you. You learn, you practice, you grow stronger. You can do it for more time. But oh, friends, if you are not encountering God in the secret place, you want to try this out. You want to try, because God there is just so good. He's so good. You get to know him more and more and more. And then you become more saturated. You become more of a Christian who's fat, who's full of God. The Bible tells us that it's not in our own strength or might, but by God's Spirit, says the Lord. If we're just the dry donut without the sauce oozing out, we got nothing. We want the sauce to ooze out. The Bible also tells us, one of my very favorite verses is Psalm 25, verse 14. I'm a little dyslexic sometimes. 25, verse 14, it says, "Friendship with the Lord is preserved for those who reverence him. With them and them alone, he shares the secrets of his promises." Oh, friendship with the Lord, to reverence him. If we reverence him, we have friendship, and then he shares the secrets of his promises in the secret place. We need this. We want this. It's not just for our good, and oh, is it ever for our good, but it's for the good of others. Our world needs us badly to be people who ooze God wherever we go, whatever encounters, if we're pressed or whatever, bumped up against, oozing this honey, of God. And this is hard work. It's deep work. I'm going to be talking along the way about healing, the process of healing and doing our deep inner work. The more we do that, the more space there is in us to meet with the Lord, to be filled with the Lord, to, we become a fatter container and we can contain more of him. It's so good. And we need it so much. We need to become Christians who are fat and getting fatter. So let's all get fat together. And I'm going to sign off there. If you think of somebody that needs to hear or watch this video, please share it. Please like it. Please consider subscribing to this channel to increase the algorithm so that it can get out to more people. If you want to leave a comment, please do. I appreciate that. If you want to reach out to me personally, get my email address from the page here. And yeah, as always, be healthy and grow on.